guys? Welcome to another episode of OTB Extra for your Saturday, June 17th, 2023. I'm your host, Phil, and of course, this is Outside the Brand. Thank you so much for joining us right here on this Saturday afternoon, guys. Today is the day at 8 p.m. Eastern on TNT. Saturday Night Collision is here. The return of CM Punk. We're talking all things CM Punk on this extra today. I got my guys TJ and Zay here. How you guys feeling, man? It's Collision is here. Are y'all gonna be watching tonight for AEW Collision?
You already know. We watching that whole live.
And then I'm very interested to see
Whatever Zay is saying, I think he's excited because we can't hear you, my boy. Can't hear you. Nope.
we good.
There we
We
go. We're
Gucci now.
good now. I hear you now.
Um, of course, I'm excited. I'm excited to see Bullet Club Gold plus Joe versus CMFTR. The whole card collision looks amazing.
Yeah. Um. So, talking about the whole main event, we all know CM Punk returns. He is in the main event of AEW Collision with his buddies FTR to take on Bullet Club Gold's Rock Hard Juice Robinson. I don't know if you guys know, but he is rock hard, um, along with Switchblade Jay White and the Ring of Honor Television Champion Samoa Joe. A lot of stuff has come out with CM Punk as of late. We all know that CM Punk had a recent interview with ESPN. The transcript was released yesterday, but apparently, sometime later on today, this afternoon, it's airing on ESPN. So I don't know when that actually is taking place. If anybody knows, uh, let me know because I definitely want to check that out because I mean, there's a lot of stuff that happened in that interview, but we're going to be talking about all things CM Punk today in this short little extra here. Really should not be taking that long. But guys, did you hear about this CM Punk interview and what went on about it? Because I didn't even know the interview was going to happen up until the point of yesterday when reports were coming out about it.
I I heard some murmurs of he was gonna do an interview, but I thought the interview would be like on Collision right
Right.
before his match. I didn't think ESPN of all places was going to hold this big of an interview.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of wild, TJ. I mean, this whole thing about AEW Collision, Punk really being the forefront of the whole thing. ESPN is
hmm
picking up this thing, man.
Yeah, and that's wild because, like Zay, when I heard about it, I also thought Collision, but then when they told me ESPN, first thing I thought was, well, because we all saw the dirt sheets too. Oh, it's something that's going to be even more negative towards AEW. So you
Yeah.
start prepping for the worst. And then when it comes out what he actually said, you're just like, oh, okay.
So
Mm.
let's get
But
right
yeah.
into everything here. During the latest audio of the PW Torch VIP.com, Wade Keller dropped a cryptic note on CM Punk and he hinted that something not good overall for AEW is about to happen. Keller said, and I quote, I am under
Mm.
the impression between now and Saturday, uh, there's going to be something that comes out in the media wise that is not going to help matters, probably. I don't mean to be cryptic, but I haven't heard the detail and seen enough to say much just yet. But I really don't know. I just think it's gonna be one of those weeks. I'll put it that way. From what I am hearing behind the scenes in AEW, it's just going to be one of those weeks. Now, ahead of everything with AEW Collision, this report was written 3 days before the event, so on Thursday, but we're here. AEW Collision starts tonight at 8, 7 Central for TNT and AEW. It's a big thing for AEW. It's their second show, supposed to be their B show, and we don't know what happened just yet. That that time last night on AEW Dynamite, they aired a video on Punk and, about his official return for AEW Collision. And Punk said that he has a lot to get off his chest and he has scores to settle within AEW still. Whether that means that he is going to be talking on AEW Collision, that remains to be seen. But at the end of the day, it happens tonight, y'all. So that's going to be very interesting to say. Wade Keller being very cryptic as usual when it comes to PW Torch. He has no idea what could happen, but yeah, it's going to be something big. AEW Collision is going to be a very newsworthy show, regardless.
It is, and to speak on what Wade Keller had said, I think the only negative right now that can come out the situation with everything that's happened in the past year is if AEW is going to lose one of the two parties overall within the next year. That is the only negative I see out of this. You could be like, oh, well, the Elite don't want to work with Punk. Whatever. That's a negative, but, like, that's not ending of the company. Losing specifically the Elite would be company ending.
It would be so detrimental. If you lose the Elite, you can't have All Elite Wrestling. It would just be all wrestling.
Yeah,
that'd be like losing John Cena. That's what that'd be like, losing Cena, Orton, and like another one of those heavy hitters.
Like, and we all know that the Elite are still trying to do something when it comes to their contract. And their contracts are coming up. So, like, I mean, if the Elite were smart, I'd use this whole Punk thing and the WWE interest, because we all know WWE has interest, to their leverage. Like, come on! If you want us to really stay in this goddamn company, yeah, sure, you can throw money at me all you want, but there is a rival promotion that truly wants us, and this whole Punk thing, we don't want to deal with it anymore.
No.
So
I think if they lose the Elite, that's a big L. You're never coming back from that.
Yeah.
They could lose Punk. I think there's a chance that the big thing could be Punk announcing like the last year of his career, last 6 months, something like that.
Yeah.
But overall, I think the big news he's talking about is the fact that the Elite are refusing to talk to Punk.
Yeah.
Which is valid.
Very true. Very true, man. So, we're going to figure out what happens on Collision, but getting into this whole interview, some people in AEW are interpreting CM Punk's ESPN interview as needlessly inflammatory, and Punk thinks that he was just promoting Collision. So, during Wade Keller's audio show that was posted today on the pwtorchvip.com website, Wade went into many details about the CM Punk interview with ESPN, and he said, and I quote, "From everybody that I talked to in AEW, I've had a handful of people since last night in various positions of the company that were very, skeptical about the whole thing. Everybody was bracing for this, but my understanding is that Tony Khan knows what was said, and others do as well. Maybe there's going to be some sort of internal finessing with what happened, but the impression I got is things aren't better between Punk and the Elite and the satellite members of the anti-Punk group within AEW. Things are not at all better. Someone in AEW said, yeah, we're keeping them apart for a while still, and Punk's going to be on Saturday's show, and the Elite, etc. group of the anti-Punk people will probably be kept away from him. Not everybody who dislikes Punk will be kept off of Collision, but like the core people, it says like will be. It sounds like it will be. It just isn't better." So the Elite, they just don't want to deal with it anymore. They don't want to deal with Punk. They don't want to deal with anybody. And at the end of the day, they just don't have the skin to even just take it on the chin anymore. It's so weird, man. They just have nothing to fall back on when it comes to this Punk situation. They just don't want to deal with him.
I mean, I don't blame him because when it all came out, you already had people jumping to Punk's side and saying, "Oh, they started it. There's no way they didn't start it." And then, like, also think about Hangman and all this. Man is minding his own business and gets dragged into this shit. So off rip, fuck you. What you saying? Fuck me for? Fuck you. I don't give a fuck what this guy does.
Yeah.
So now. And if I was the Elite, knowing everything that went down, and again, it's one of those things that sucks because the only people who know what truly happened are the parties involved.
Right.
If I'm the Elite, and if CM Punk really is the instigator in all this, for me to see everybody dick riding him so hard, ask for him to come back, I'd be pissed. I would be so fucking pissed.
I apologize. I have a 5-year-old pain in the ass. What was the question?
Honestly, I just read from what Wade Keller said on one of his other shows today that that the Elite are just not in any way, shape, or form wanting to involve themselves with CM Punk, and they are just wanting to be done with the whole situation. So, it looks like they're just not going to have like the thick enough skin in order to even try to work with the man anymore. And TJ can't blame him. I really can't blame him. I just want things to go back. Like, just leave it all in the freaking past and just make money for AEW and get things going. And whatever happens, happens. Just get it over with.
If I was Kenny, the Bucks, Hangman, I'd be on the same page as y'all. Like, I don't feel like what was said in that promo was as inflammatory as Punk took it. I think Punk even agreed in the interview. It wasn't as inflammatory as he took it at the time.
Yeah.
And the reaction that he had to that's I can forgive you, but I'm not going to forget. I'm not going to mess with you. I don't want to work with you. I'm going to keep my distance, but I forgive you in my heart. Forgiveness is about the person forgiving, not the forgiven.
Yeah. Fightful Select then noted that Punk was sent documents to sign to protect AEW because AEW is definitely covering all their bases to make sure that something like the brawl out situation during the media scrum does not happen again. And I'm actually very, listen, Tony Khan, he can be a boss at times, but he can also just let the boss thing go to wayside, and he just doesn't even really at the cabals at times. But at least they're covering all their bases to make sure that whatever happened at Brawl Out doesn't happen again, because you can't have something like that ever happen again, man. Because it's just not good for all parties involved, especially AEW as a company. Overall, you don't want to have that happen.
I think, men are going to fight. Men are going to have disagreements. Even myself, I'm not going to rule out the idea that I'm going to get into wrestling and then I got to slap a nigga in the locker room. So I'm not going to rule it out. But at the same time, it shouldn't be public information. Like if someone walked up to me right now in a normalized everyday environment and said some of the shit that Punk said, yeah, I'm gonna check them. I'm gonna see what's up. That is life. I don't think fighting in WWE locker rooms is that big of a deal at all. AEW,
I mean, especially back then. Back then, like during the 90s and 80s and all that kind of stuff, that stuff was just happening.
Wrestler's court, yeah. And I'm pretty sure it still happens today. It's only a big deal because Punk aired that shit publicly, and that's something you don't do. If you got a problem with the wrestlers, you go to the wrestlers. It's common knowledge of wrestling, and I'm not even a wrestler. If you got a problem with me, you come directly to me. Don't air this shit out in public, because that can fuck up our company. Because we're at a media scrum. Why are you telling our business to a media scrum? Because now AEW doesn't know how to control their wrestlers. Tony Khan doesn't look like a good boss. Now, the Warner Brothers is going to wonder, why are we giving you a show if you don't know how to control your roster, Tony? Why should we give you more stuff?
I asked Deontay and Loft this earlier in the Friday Night SmackDown post show last night, because we just started to talk about Collision because it was tomorrow night at that time of the recording. is AEW Collision happening without CM Punk?
Yes and no. I think without CM Punk, they would have moved Rampage to where Collision is and switched the name. I think Collision would have been born as like a televised ROH almost. Kind of like that slot. Because they've had Collision trademarked for a while. CM Punk was still working when they put the trademark in for that show. But I don't think it would look like it does now. I think the show would be almost all damn near NXT. It would be damn near NXT for 2014.
Okay.
That's what I got the vibe from. But, yeah.
What do you think, TJ? Is it happening without CM Punk?
Zay kind of
CM
hit
Punk
it
is
on
just
the nail.
never here.
He kind of hit it on the nail. Obviously, they build it heavily around Punk, but I think it would still happen without him. It just will not feel the same. So tonight, make or break, in my opinion.
I'm personally under the impression that it wouldn't have been happening without CM Punk. CM Punk is the reason why the show is existing. I mean, at the end of the day, regardless of the whole situation that happened at the whole brawl out situation, yeah, sure, Warner Media is very high on AEW, and they want more programming for AEW, and AEW wants more programming to showcase their stars. But at the end of the day, yeah, sure, you're right, Zay, in saying that the Collision trademark was a thing before this whole thing kind of went away, but they made this show specifically for Punk, and if it wasn't for that, and I don't know if the show would be happening.
This iteration of Collision is definitely made for Punk, but I do think when they signed Punk, they reached a threshold where they had too many big names and that they needed a second show anyway.
That's true.
I know Rampage was supposed to be that show, but
no.
I think 2 months in, they knew Rampage was not going to evolve into that show within an hour.
Yeah.
Rampage is now level up. It's just
they legitimately said when Rampage was made and announced and all that kind of stuff, it was going to be an extension from Dynamite. It's not an extension for shit. It hasn't been an extension since its inception.
And Punk was on like the first or second episode of Rampage. So I think if anything, Rampage is the show they made for Punk.
Was supposed to be Punk returned
show.
after a 7-year hiatus on that second episode of the show. Yeah. So I mean, like it's a very it's been very CM Punk centered.
Oriented.
I mean, you know, Rampage was the first. Rampage was called the first dance of CM Punk coming back to pro wrestling after a 7-year hiatus. Then Collision happens, it gets announced and all that kind of stuff. CM Punk is making his return to the company, and there were rumors going all over the place that it was going to be called the Second Coming. The Second Coming of the Second City Saint in Chicago.
So much.
But obviously it wasn't. And it's just called AEW Collision, but they were going to be doing the tagline of the Second Coming. It didn't happen. It's not that, but
to rewind it slightly,
very weird.
Because I meant to throw this in when y'all were mentioning it, but y'all were talking back and forth, and I'm not one to interrupt. With the whole media scrum thing and him airing out the business, what really rubbed me the wrong way about that was, one, obviously professionalism, and two, he stated one of his biggest reasons for signing with AEW was the backstage privacy that they keep. Situations like the Brody Lee tragedy being under wraps and controlled by all means from Tony Khan and the roster. And for him to go out there and kind of be the antithesis of what he stated was one of his drawing forces to come here, really, it hurt in a way, because it reeked of ego.
Yeah.
And
it just, it's not what you want to see in your wrestlers.
No.
If you ask me, he became the very thing he argued against in his pipe bomb. That's what he came off as.
Very true, honestly. So Cohen went on to say that, and I quote, Punk didn't say anything that he was legally not allowed to say, but he said other things that are being interpreted and needlessly inflammatory, and it sounds like Punk is thinking he was promoting the show and speaking honestly, but not in an inflammatory way, and that should be causing drama. My interpretation of the flaming of what I've heard is Punk's reaction. If people react to this negatively, then they are overreacting. So we'll see. I do not know what was said. I just know that I was told to brace for some drama leading into Saturday's show, and depending on whose side you're on, either Punk is at it again or the elite group really needs to grow a thicker skin. Grow a set of thicker skin. Different people looking at things through different lenses. So, I mean, it basically is a kind of he said, she said type of thing. And and whether it's inflammatory or not, Punk is saying, listen, I'm just trying to promote the show. If you're taking this in the wrong way, that's you. But that's the mind of CM Punk. The elite obviously have different mindsets.
His case for being like, oh, you know, I was promoting the show is solid, but at the same time, I'd have to agree that some things could have been better left unsaid. He could have simply, when it came to All Out, been like, look, we're trying to move on. You know, shit happens, like he did with the segment. He was like, look, this shit happens in hockey and nobody really cares, etc., etc. People are out the next day.
Yeah.
I think if he would have kept it at that instead of fully explaining, well, this is why Hangman irritated me, and then, you know, I was worried during Double. I think that right there is the borderline inflammatory segment, because I didn't view that as completely necessary information. That is, once again, something that you could have just kept. Look, that's our issue. Yeah. Stay out of it.
Yeah. So,
yeah, for sure.
Fightful Select reported earlier on today that Punk answered questions in a way that would make the audience wonder if he was shooting or angling for a storyline, and Punk was very aware of what he was saying and how it came across as polarizing. Also, it was said that he did not. It was said that he did so in a way to blur the lines and create buzz for the upcoming show. Furthermore, Hangman Page was brought up in a way that was absolutely not confusing in a work shoot perspective, and was clearly intentional. And so, I mean, Punk knows what he was saying. So, you know, he was just, he says what he says.
Yeah, he's gonna say what he wants to say, but I think even he's aware that it's rough.
Yeah. And finally, guys, AEW, because of all of this, is attempting damage control in response to CM Punk's ESPN interview. ESPN interview for CM Punk is expected to release sometime today, as of today, legitimately Saturday, for Saturday Collision. Although the interview has yet to be released to the public, some quotes have been making the rounds to those in AEW. As previously reported, Punk answered questions in a way that blurred the lines and whether he was shooting or angling for a storyline, as Punk was aware of what he was saying, and it could come across as polarizing. In the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer reported that AEW was hoping Punk's comments about Hangman Page wouldn't be a part of the article, and as a promotion tries to sign him to a new deal. I mean, we all know that Hangman's deal is coming up. They want to sign him because if you lose Hangman 2 in this whole process, that's huge. That's a huge hit. So Meltzer said, and I quote, AEW was hopeful that the comments Punk made about Hangman and Adam Page would not be a part of the article/video, but the talent is largely aware of them. This is largely because of the company is actively trying to sign Page to a new long-term deal. This is an attempt of damage control going to the press time, but much of the talent was aware of what Punk originally said. So that's what Dave had to say about the whole situation. It was reported last year that Punk and Page did not see eye to eye, and some of the promo material leading up to their match at Double or Nothing. Punk's comments about Page were a shoot, and he said that Page did not come out to the ring being a cowardly type of move and not doing some cowboy shit. Yeah, so listen, they're trying to control the situation as much as they can. They contacted ESPN saying, listen, keep the CM Punk, Hangman, and Page out of there. But ESPN, it's really up to them on what goes on and what doesn't, right? I mean, is there an?
I mean, in a way, yes. Any journalism firm could just be like, I'm gonna release this, but at the same time, if they want to maintain the relationship they have with AEW,
yeah,
you listen to what they say when they're like, hey, this is
listen.
Unnecessary, leave it out.
Yeah.
Unless it's a big, like, controversial news report about the company overall. But, like, when it comes to talent, it's just, you don't mention anything I don't approve.
Right. So that's all the news that we got for the whole CM Punk situation, guys. It's a very, very newsworthy situation indeed. We all know Saturday Night Collision happens tonight. He is in the main event against Switchblade Jay White, Rock Hard, Juice Robinson, and Samoa Joe. CM Punk has been wanting to work with guys like a Jay White and like Samoa Joe since his comeback. So, okay, thanks. God damn it. That's what happens. That is what happens here on OTB, guys. That's what happens here on OTB. People just leave whenever they want, and they just don't give a shit. But guys, that's all the news that we have about CM Punk. CM Punk returns tonight for AEW Collision. If you guys are watching the show, make sure to come back here at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the full post show, and we'll talk all things Collision. It's a big deal. Stay tuned for that. And we'll get everything to you guys when it comes to that very newsworthy show for AEW Collision. Thank you guys so much for joining us right here on the OTB Extra. Go follow us. All the links are down in the description below. Thank you, SeatGeek, for sponsoring today's video. Use the code OTB at checkout for $20 off your first purchase using SeatGeek. And guys, we'll talk to you later on tonight for AEW Collision. Have a good night. Have a good rest of the day, guys. We'll see you later on tonight for AEW Collision. Peace out, y'all.